Bosba Panh began singing when she was 7. She began composing as a teenager, mixing classical Cambodian and Western music. And now as an adult at age 22, her interest shifts to understanding the Cambodian music through academic research. Bosba's dedication to the arts from a very young age makes her one of the key Cambodian artists who embodies both the theories and physical expressions of creativity. In June, as a recent graduate of the prestigious New England Conservatory of Music, Bosba dropped by The Voice of America to talk about the creative adventure that is an artist's life and her relentless effort to understand Cambodia through its arts. Bà សូមជម្រាបសួរ Bosba
ជំរាបសួរ
សុខសប្បាយ
សុខសប្បាយ
បាទ so first of all big congrats on graduation from one of the top music school in the US, New England Conservatory.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so you brought your cape here. Tell me a little bit about it. These
well,
two.
Okay, so this one is my high school graduation cape.
That's in France.
Actually, no, it was at the Walnut Hill School for the Arts in Natick, Massachusetts, so about 45 minutes away from Boston.
All right.
So, I was pretty excited to go to NEC,
See the face in there?
Yeah.
With the sunflowers?
It was like a running joke from, my friends. Like, they kept saying in Bosba every time, like, you laugh, we keep seeing, your face on a sunflower.
And this is?
Well, the other one is after, when I graduated from NEC, which, it's a little bit more funny, but, because it was pretty stressful for all of the graduates. So, I thought about doing something funny.
Funny. So it's Bachelor of Music from New England Conservatory.
Yes.
My first question is what it's like studying at one of the top music school in the US like that.
Well, I really like my time at NEC. Part of it, is because, you meet a lot of people who look like you, but also, who perform at the highest level. And especially for a composer, that's really great because you get really good performers to play your music. You relate to each other much better also because it's only a music school, so everybody does music, everybody does the same thing, everybody wants the same thing. You're also, Boston is a very intellectual city, so, you have Harvard, you have MIT, you have Tufts, so everybody's very, at the top of what they do in their profession. But you also, everybody's very chill and very down to earth because we don't have the rush of New York City.
Right.
Boston I think it's much more of a sporty city. It's much more of a home city for a lot of us. And I also think, NEC for me, really prepared me with very flexible skills that, it really prepares you for the job market that we have now.
I got this banner from NEC. You are on the cover of their poster or banner about composition. Tell us a bit about this.
Well, so I was asked to do, pictures for NEC, and I knew it was for the marketing.
Why did they choose you then?
Well, I don't know. Maybe because, I look like a composer. I'm at the piano. I look very, focused on, what I'm doing.
You must have done something right. That's why they chose you.
No, maybe it's just my face.
Yeah.
But I like that, they chose a Cambodian to be, the face of the department.
They probably know your background a little bit as a singer in a very young age. So that's my next question. So you've been singing your whole life, since 5-6 years old, in Cambodia, in other countries, in music festival. I see here with other major artists like Francis Poulenc, Carol, and all these famous people, and you are in all these events, doing concert at Angkor Wat and all that. But in college, you choose to go to composition, which is writing original music.
Yeah.
Why?
For me, it's I grew up my whole childhood. I was, a singer. I was doing Khmer music, but I was also, followed by a lot of the media. So it was very tiring for me, to always be on top of everything. And I got to a point where I felt more comfortable expressing myself through composition. I also developed an interest in research, especially on research about Cambodian music. And I felt that as a composer, it was easier to bridge that interest between research about Cambodian music and writing music that was either, inspired by Cambodia or by other things in my life.
kind of move away from singing, but move away to writing musics, composing musics. Is that the plan for the future?
I think it's like, well, I have a hard time, telling people that I'm moving away from singing because I actually compose mostly for voice. So for me, I feel that I'm always in the vocal path, but I've just like shifted the way I express myself. So instead of singing myself, I write music for other people to sing, or I write music for other people to express who I am. I think it's also, you need a lot of introspection towards how you want things to be expressed.
We are going to dive deep into the process of composing a music from scratch, but I want to go back to your root a little bit. You've been an artist your whole life, singer or composer now. Why? Is it in your family? Are you from a family of artists or something?
So my parents are not artists. My mom, works in policy making, and my dad used to be a journalist, but they are both very intellectual. They are both, they really like train. I mean, I feel like it's not really a training as in like school, but they brought us to museums. We had a lot of music at home. So it felt almost very natural for me to be very artistic. And I was very fortunate to have parents who did support me, in an art career, which is not always the case, because a lot of people have misconceptions that, being an artist doesn't bring you money, or it's, it's not as prestigious as being a lawyer, for example. But regardless of which career you choose to go, I think my parents saw that I felt the happiest in the arts. So I'm very thankful that they still support me to this day.
I'm sure you have a great parent and they must be very proud of you.
I hope they are.
All right, so now we're going to go into the technicality of music composition. You've been writing, I've checked your website, I saw a lot of your music. Bring us, the audience, me and all the people, into the journey of composing a music from scratch. And tell us a challenge, tell us how you prepare yourself, your feeling, inspiration and all that, and how you stay creative. So these are something that I think I'm myself quite interested in, that process of creativity.
Well, a lot of people think that, as a composer, you just, pull something out of your hat and you start writing music, but it's much more, I think, rational that what people think. We get commissions in a way that, say an author would get, if you're asked to write a book about something, or if you're a journalist, you write about the story. It's the same thing with composers, but we don't write, articles, we write music about a story. So for me, I get my inspiration either, from my experience growing up in Cambodia, but also, books that I read. Sometimes it's just commissions and, people want something very specific. So, I have to tailor to these demands. When it comes to composing, the process of composition, it's very much like a habit. It's like going to the gym or, taking your car to work in the morning. So what I do usually is that I write in the morning very early. Partly me because I'm like half awake. So it's easier, to tap into that creative, pool. So, I just compose. It's very easy. I go to the piano, I open my computer, I improvise a little bit, and then I just write or work, on a current project. Once that's done, once you have everything that's notated, like a journalist, you have to edit. Yeah. Then you have to I bring in them to my lessons, so my teachers, will say, oh, this part can be adjusted a little bit. Same thing, if you have a publisher. And once it's done and you're ready to perform this piece, there's a lot of planning that comes from the part of a composer. So you have to find your musicians, you have to find a rehearsal space, you have to rehearse 1, 2, 3 more times depending on how big the piece is. Then you have to get to a concert, you have to write program notes that are what the piece is about. And then, there's the whole business part of being a composer, which is, making sure you pay your musicians on time or you get paid on time.
Sounds like you did enjoy doing this.
I do enjoy
it. Happiness from being around music and all that. Like you said.
Et pourtant, je n'aime que toi. Et pourtant, je n'aime que toi. Et pourtant, je n'aime que toi. Et pourtant, belle prực môi nụ, yo smart ថាខ្ញុំចាក់ផុតទុក្ខាព្ ធាក់ឡើងចំឡែកផុសប្លែកពីថ្ងៃធម្មតាក្នុងដួងចិត្តមានសេរីផុតទុក្ខភ័យក្តីស្នេហាទោះយ៉ាងណាគ្មានស្ដាយស្រណោះណាយចុះគ្រានេះយ៉ាងនងបាយគ្នាអូនឃ្លាតប្រលឹងមិនដឹងវិលវិញថ្ងៃណាឆ្ងាយភ័ក្រថ្លាថ្លាដោយពេកឆ្ងាយជានិច្ចឆ្ងាយចិនដាឆ្ងាយកាយព្រោះឆ្ងាយអត្ថាឆ្ងាយវាចា
So you mentioned about your experience or your background as a Cambodian. My next question is how does that influence your music composition, the Cambodian culture or the Khmer music industry? How does it contribute to your composition?
I think, I struggled a lot, when I started composing, with, is this music Cambodian enough? And I had one of my teachers said, but you are Cambodian, so anything that you write is Cambodian. You are a product of Cambodia. And I realized that, I slowly realized that, there are many stories as to what a Cambodian is. There are many ways that we can express our identity and our culture. For example, we often think that, Cambodian is somebody from Cambodia, but we also have Cambodians that live, in the United States. They also have a story, that maybe is not about growing up in Cambodia, but they have that Cambodian identity. How little it is, it's up for people to interpret, but you can't really deny that, this is what a Cambodian sounds like, looks like, the different identities and stories that make what a Cambodian is. For me also, growing up in Cambodia, I grew up with oral traditions, so I learned music through oral traditions, which is very different from the Western music because there's a lot of books written about it. There are conservatories where you study Western music. Everything is very structured, whereas in oral tradition, we don't necessarily have that structure. The structure is different. And for me, because I grew up with a lack of books, or books that were written by researchers from other countries in Cambodian music, I've always had questions about my own culture, which then led me into research. So right now, I'm going into research about Cambodian music because there's not a lot of scholars that come from Cambodia. So I have like an insider view on it.
So now you finish a bachelor.
Correct.
So you're going to graduate school,
Yes.
following, trying to understand Cambodian music. What kind of music? Do you have an idea of a topic yet?
I think I am going to specialize in vocal music of Cambodia and, ensemble singing. So, what we think of smooth, whether it's like in like several groups of people or like single group of people, what were the influences and what really made it so, an identity of our culture. I think, there's also how, in the mid-20th century or the later half of the century, when we had the Khmer Rouge genocide, how did that impact, us Cambodians, how we see our culture, how we express our culture. A lot of our songs, are very like nostalgic or very sad. Why is that? What are the key events? What can music tell us about our history? When we have parts of our history that were either written for us or completely erased.
So you mentioned about Khmer Rouge and all that, and sad. Cambodian music sound kind of sad and all that. And also on your website, you said that your music kind of border along the theme of loss and sacrifice. Can you elaborate further about these two themes and why did you choose to do that?
Well, I think as Cambodians, the loss and sacrifice is very present in our culture. There are different ways. Obviously, we often think about the Khmer Rouge genocide because we did lose, a lot of our families in it. We were displaced, and that became a new identity of being a displaced Cambodian. There's also sacrifice because, we have our parents that are sacrificing, their lives or like some of their dreams for us to follow our dreams. There's also personal sacrifice because as immigrants or even as people back home, we feel that we always have to prove ourselves. So I think we are a very, hardworking and nation because we always want to prove ourselves. So there's this part of, personal but also like nation sacrifice. And as Cambodians, I also think that we are like a very proud Cambodians usually when we present ourselves as Cambodians. we are very, very proud of our culture, partly, because of the genocide, or maybe because we're a smaller culture within, a world that tends to monetize on other cultures.
We talk about the kind of Cambodian music and your music, classical and all these kind of Western influence music types. How would you describe your music? Is it new or is it different from the Cambodian music? And how is it contributing to the Cambodian music industry in general?
Well, I'm still in my formative years, so I went to a school in the United States that's in the West. I had to learn because it was asked for me to learn about the canons of Western music. So obviously that's reflected, in my music. But now that I'm done with this first chapter of school, I feel I have more time to actually, through research also, to really see how can I bring more of my identity in this music rather than, this was a school assignment and it needs to sound like this composer that we learn in class. And it has to follow certain rules. But now that I have more freedom, I think, I can write music that is more Cambodian per se. When we say about, contributing to Cambodian music, it's also, yes, whatever I'm going to write is Cambodian because I am Cambodian. But as to contributing to Cambodian music, we already have, artists back in Cambodia or in the United States or anywhere in the world that are contributing to Cambodian music. Is it as famous as another artist? Maybe not, but we have to recognize that these are some of the stories that we see in our community. And also through research for me, that's really how I see myself contributing the most to Cambodian music.
Do you think that you are bringing new thing to Cambodia, like new kind of music?
Well, maybe through composition, yes. Because that's new music, it's fresh, it's new. For research, maybe I don't think it's bringing new things, but bringing to the surface what we don't see about our culture or that we tend to ignore, or simply because nobody has looked into it.
And right now, in overall, this might be a stereotypical comments, but the Cambodian audience, they seem to have a particular taste of music. How do you think they respond to your music when you compose for them later?
Well, everybody's entitled to, what they like to listen. I'm not going to tell you, hey, you can't listen to this artist because, it makes you a bad person. Music is meant to be enjoyed. It's not, yes, a lot of people, art has kind of become this elite thing where, if you want to enjoy music or if you want to enjoy art, you have to be very, elite. You have to go to these schools, educated, correct. But I don't think that was the point of art in the beginning. Art was really, a way for people, for humans to express themselves, and it really should be that way. If your art should touch people, with regardless of who they are, where they come from.
All right, sounds great. So this is a little bit about your creativity. How do you stay creative? How do you keep yourself creative?
I don't compose in the summer. A lot of my friends do, but I don't compose in summer because I think that creativity, if you want to be creative or if you want to have ideas, you need to have a life.
What do you mean, life? Go out,
like,
travel?
Like a lot of people think that, writers, whether in music or words, we are just like, in our room, we lock the door and we just like work all day. But yes, there's a part of it, but if you sustain that lifestyle, then you kind of run out of ideas. So, I really enjoy gardening. I really enjoy traveling. Reading books,
seeing new things,
going to the museum, and also meeting new people, because that's how you get to have like experience, either through friendship or even with your family, just going out. That those are like sources of inspiration.
Yeah. Being creative is important. You bring new things to the countries and all that, and you are certainly one of the creative people in Cambodia. My last question is, as an artist, as a creative person, what do you think is your responsibility for your country?
I think this is a good question. So I took a class at the beginning of my senior year, and what we were studying was music of the 20th century. And our teacher asked us, why do you think this is going to contribute to you or the world? Like, how do you feel about, why do you think this is an important class for you? And when we did the rounds and we eventually got to me, I said, it kind of is a civic responsibility to inform yourself correctly, and make your own opinions about certain music. So I think for when it comes to my career, the way I see it is that there are several ways you can contribute to like the betterment of society, whether it's through music, through policy making. Research, for example, or even like being a journalist, because you're the one that's telling people information. But regardless of what you do, you always have to check yourself. You always have to check your privilege. You have to check, if your information is correct. You have to humble yourself, because if you're wrong, you have to be willing to accept that you're wrong and then grow from it.
Thank you, Bosba. This is very philosophical, and appreciate your efforts in bringing creativity to the country and contribute in a positive way. Thank you so much, and congratulations again on the graduation, and I hope you have a successful journey ahead of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Chào mừng